I'm giving away this fantasy-themed mystery box. It contains merchandise from The Witcher, Game of Thrones, The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings. I'll even be throwing in this Magic the Gathering Lord of the Rings starter kit. So if you want to get your hands on it, stick around to the end of the video to know how. Insidious the Red Door may not be the scariest film of the year, but it's still a good scary time for audiences looking for a break from superheroes and cheesy romantic comedies. This film, alongside Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse and No Hard Feelings, shows that Sony Pictures are taking chances and risks with a wide variety of films this summer season. But is it paying off for them? I think so. The first Insidious film was a surprise hit with critics and audiences when it premiered in 2011. The movie, alongside the previously released Paranormal Activity franchise, refined the modern haunting film and helped usher in a new era of supernatural horror. And it spawned a popular franchise that include one direct sequel and two prequel films. The fifth film in the series, The Red Door, is essentially the real Insidious 3, as the film directly follows the events of the first two entries, taking place 10 years after the events of Insidious Chapter 2. Josh and Renee Lambert have now separated, and their son Dalton has now grown and is ready to go to college. Due to both Dalton and Josh having their memories from the previous films wiped from their minds, a gap has been growing between them. As Dalton begins college, the events of the first two films that he has repressed start to come back to the surface and begin to haunt both him and his father. The two must return to the dark dimension known as the Further and put an end to the evil that has been haunting their family for longer than they even knew. Underneath all the paranormal elements and supernatural haunts, this is a relatable human story about the rift that forms between a parent and a child as they grow up. The supernatural elements are all seasoning for a story that is all too real as a parent and a child find themselves going through as time goes on. Josh and Dalton have grown apart due to the divorce and multiple repressions fogging up Josh's mind to where he has become distant from everyone. The horror elements are rooted into anxieties the audience can relate to, and it also adds the subtext of repressed trauma, forming a major rift between individuals. While the previous Insidious movies argued that it's best to put these terrible memories in the past and forget them, whereas Insidious the Red Door builds off that to acknowledge the toxic nature of that thought process. In the 10 years that have passed since the release of Insidious Chapter 2, a wider discussion about mental health has begun to take form. This long-awaited sequel justifies its existence by being in conversation with the original films. Instead of repressing terrible memories, it's better to acknowledge them and move forward. But time has been the ultimate benefit for this movie. It also now arrives as the audience who likely saw the first two Insidious films are now older and wiser, making the characters that we see on screen more relatable. While the previous Insidious prequels may have diluted the brand a bit, the first two films by James Wan were a masterclass of horror. It made it all the more impressive by their PG-13 rating. They managed to be terrifying without any of the normal hallmarks of a slasher film. Patrick Wilson himself has worked closely with James Wan not only on the previous Insidious films but also in the Conjuring franchise, so he's definitely got the better hand when it comes to horror. While the movie might overuse the jump scare trick one too many times, it's hard to argue how effective they are. And it goes hand in hand that Wilson knows how to build the tension. Even when it's clear what is about to happen, it doesn't make the final scare any less terrifying. Patrick Wilson has definitely proven himself as exciting as a director as he is an actor. Wilson does a great job behind and in front of the camera, as do many of those involved. And TySimpkins has truly grown up. For audiences who will likely remember him as the kid from Insidious 1 and 2, or even in Iron Man or Jurassic World, seeing him as a young adult will certainly be shocking and difficult to adjust. This is essentially his first full-time leading role, and he easily excels all expectations. He carries a true sense of pain in his eyes that truly sells the scared and traumatized person at the center of this story. But the performance that really stood out to me was the newcomer Sinclair Daniels, who plays Dalton's college roommate and eventually companion on this journey into the heart of darkness. From her first moment, she commands the screen and easily steals the show. As chilling as the atmosphere is in this film and how terrifying it can be, the first thing that's likely on everyone's mind is who is this person and what has she been in? Hopefully Insidious the Red Door is the beginning of a long and exciting career for her. Insidious the Red Door does have one major issue, and it's centered around the character of Renee Lambert, who's played by Rose Byrne. She was a vital part in the first two films and was completely sidelined in this one. While she's not completely rewritten out of the film, her lack of screen time is frustrating. She factors early on in the beginning of the film and does not return until the end of the movie. While the intention is clearly to focus on the father-son dynamic, it does feel like the mother's role in this story is greatly shortchanged, particularly when you consider how important she was in the first two films. Her presence is brief, and that is even more frustrating. Insidious the Red Door not only puts the franchise back on track, but it's also an effective conclusion to the main Lambert trilogy of films. while also tying nicely into the two prequel films, making it a solid horror saga. It may not be as scary as the original, but it gets pretty close, and it brings the story that started in 2011 to a satisfying conclusion. As with any horror franchise, there will certainly be more films or a spin-off, but if the franchise wanted to end here, at least it ended on a high note. Insidious The Red Door will satisfy longtime fans of the franchise and should scare any newcomers daring to travel into the further. But that's just my thoughts and feelings about the film. If you've seen it, I'd love to know what you thought about it in the comments below. And if you want to win this fantasy-themed mystery box, all you need to do are these 3 simple things. Leave a like on this video, comment on any of my videos, and subscribe to my channel, and one lucky random subscriber will be announced on the 31st of July. You can even hit that bell icon to keep up to date with my latest uploads and giveaways, such as my comic book giveaways every fortnight. And lastly, before I go, I just want to say a big thank you for watching, and to smash that like button so it can get recommended to other people. So with all of that being said, I will see you in the next one, but until then, take care.